set? All right. Good evening. This is the Board of Public Works meeting of Monday, March 14th, 2022. It is 6:12, and we're being held at the library program room at the Library Plaza. It's nice to be, 2 years ago we weren't here. Nobody was here. It's nice to be getting back to normal. Tonight's appointment, we have 2 appointments, an abatement issue and a presentation. We have action items, we have 6 of them. Release of abatement, betterment lien at Chandler Drive. I'm assuming that's Senate Sewer 2000, somewhere along that time.
Yes.
Indirect charges document, Surf Ave, water main, drain replacement, ARPA funding, it's an ASTM article. Emergency repairs to Plymouth Avenue is a PS force main. It's also an ARPA funding article that's going on the STM. The award of a water system master plan update. It's also a STM article. Number 6 is award survey existing condition plan and easement plan preparation for Ocean Street seawall from Thomas Street to Blackman's Point. And then those are the 6 action items. Board discussion, water supply capacity, which I put on based on the 40B that's being proposed in the ZBA. Drainage spills testing for Weston and Sampson, a DEP notice. We're going to go over the annual town meeting and the STM articles. We're going to talk about the budget. Then we're going to vote to accept the minutes of February 28th, an open meeting.
We're going to
I'll pass all those. Okay. And then the superintendent's going to do his report. And our next meeting will be March 28th, 2022. That's the agenda. I need a second to move forward.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So it's 6:14. We have a betterment issue. Jay Sullivan. Jay Sullivan? Hi.
John, yeah.
John. It just said GA.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, since I'm a state employee, I believe that I have a conflict, and I don't want to weigh in on this. I'm going to turn it over to the vice chair.
Vice Chair. Good evening. Okay. We are in receipt of the various pieces of correspondence that took place starting September. Yeah, come up one, please. You've been advised, I guess, about the board policy and the prior requirements, correct?
Say that again?
You were advised about the board policies with regard to abatements of...
Correct.
In the past.
Correct.
Just figured we could cut to the quick if I
Yeah.
summarize what you already know. We have that abatement policy for both water, sewer, and trash. Basically, it deals with either financial hardship, request from active duty military personnel, list the circumstances under which things can be granted and not granted. And this policy dates back to July of 2015 when it was signed in by then Chair Steve Hawking. And I've seen the attached to the billing information along with the water data and usage that the town took from its records off the meters. And I see that the relatively high rates of usage that you're looking to abate is principally occurred in 2021. Is that correct?
Correct.
And if I also, if I recall correctly from reading this is on a rental property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll give you the floor, sir.
So we used to live on Grotto Road, 19 Grotto Road. We lived there for 20 years. And the house at the end of the road was an old, basically a Quonset. So we bought it years ago, we both cashed in our retirement funds, and we bought the house, we did it all over, and we rented out. We had owned it for, how many, 10 years?
At least,
Yeah.
at least.
So we, say that again?
How long?
10 years.
No, about 15, I would say.
Close to 15? Okay, 10 to 15.
So,
Okay.
so that's how long we've owned it, we've always had a tenant in there, and, so back in, I wanna say September, we got a very high water bill. So I thought it was a mistake, it was like $6,500. So I said, well, I kiddingly went up to the water department, my classmate worked up there, for high school, Gretchen Warren, and said, I think you sent me Marshfield High's water bill. And she laughed and she said, no, you must have a serious leak. So I said, well, this is the first I'm hearing about it. And she said, well, they should have sent you a letter saying that there was an issue with the meter or a high reading. I said, well, I didn't get any letter. And I know what the letter is because my primary residence, we did get a letter. It said there was a leak underground that we fixed. So I know what the letter looks like. So I didn't receive it. The day I got the bill, the same day I ran into Jeff Hubbard and I said, I got a big problem. He came right over. He went down, he showed me the meter was spinning, which I didn't know what that meant, but he showed me the meter was spinning and he fixed it that same day. And so I said to the tenant, who they didn't really speak any English, but I said, did you realize that there was an issue? It was the toilet, it wasn't sealing, it just kept running. And Jeff told me, he said, it'll go through 500 gallons a day.
Yep.
And I said, there's a reason why you didn't tell me? And like, no, they just, whatever reason, didn't tell us. So the first I heard of it was when I got the bill.
Yeah, I'm looking at the usage for the prior two periods, the January of 2020 and the August of 2020. Yeah, when you were in the 936 and 997
Right.
gallons type of relatively high usage. So in part, I think it was due, the fact that the letter may not have come on the first read would have probably been because it didn't hit a percentage target. Or was there a reason at the time?
The letter?
Yeah, the letter didn't go up?
I mean, the system's a bit antiquated. It doesn't just generate a letter.
I
So what
understand that.
happens is, right, once we run the commitment,
Yeah,
it'll show like an anomaly, like that would be a high water bill.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, you send the letter out.
yeah.
Kind of like notifying that a big bill was coming.
Right, yeah, I understand the system, I used to live with it, but the bottom line coming down, yeah.
Well, I asked her that, she said, well, I can't tell you that the letter was sent because the system isn't working. So I said, well, when was it sent? And she said, the computer, whatever issue it
Yeah,
had. She said, I can't tell you if it was sent. It might not have been sent.
So we basically missed one opportunity to alert you back in January 27th of 2021. And then you got hit with an even higher bill come July 28th of 2021. I do see that seems to be a pretty, the total variance is kind of somewhat in line, but a little higher, but higher than typical of what you see seasonally from one point to the other. Your
Yeah,
winter's
it's about
usually lower,
1800
your summer's higher.
Yeah, it's about 1,800 a year, is what it is.
Well, bottom line on the policy, as you are aware, is that, the leak within the house that's inside of the meter is actually the responsibility of the resident or the owner, in this case, because you're not the resident, but you're the owner. And part of the reason that has the policy set up the way it is because, when this happens, if we grant an abatement, that abatement basically becomes part of the, what ends up in the next rate increase because it's an unaccounted for flow for all intents and purposes, or an uncompensated flow in this case. So part of the reason the board has the policy the way it is because it's not fair for people who didn't have a leak to be paying for others who do have a leak when the circumstances can permit, knowledge. The other thing I guess I would say is, you don't have anything in your rental agreement where basically excessive water use over some preset value would be covered by the tenant.
No.
You do not, okay. I guess in hindsight, that might not be a bad move.
Well, they're hardworking, they're hardworking, they work 3,000 hours a week, so
Yeah.
I don't know if they could even, if I did have it in there, it'd still probably be on me.
let's look at this. Tom, do you have anything to add to this? Tom?
No, other than, the usage, staff had discussed it, and, there's 4 tiers of rates that we charge based on gallons used. If we were to abate the water, we could charge everything over that 608, that second tier. Would eliminate 2 tiers, and we charge the 608 rate. For some of the water, it would be about an 11, it'd be about a little over $1,000 rebate on the water.
Say 1,100, give or take.
Yeah, it's 1,011.80.
Okay, so, be well said.
Go ahead, proceed, John.
We have here the resident, if we received the letter, which we're not too sure if it went out because it's antiquated.
Do we have any documentation of the letter going out and when?
It would have been in that packet.
Okay, so the answer is no,
Okay, no.
to the best of your knowledge.
So
Okay.
what I'm saying, if we can look at that, if in fact Mr. Sullivan got the letter, obviously he would have repaired this problem ASAP. So could we look at it from when he would have received the letter and the additional water that perhaps pay for the sewage and reduce the water? Because if he got the letter, he would have repaired that, even if he repaired the sewage.
I understand what you're saying, I
So-
don't dispute it, but I have a question when you're done, of the staff, if you're done.
Go ahead, ask the question.
Okay, well, my question is, Tom, when you were looking at that analysis, had the letter gone out, the first tier would, when they had a reading of 1,087, which resulted in about roughly 30K more gallons being used at that point in time. Was any of that rolled into the calculation, or was it just based on the second reading, which was back in July of 2021?
Actually, it was the year's reading. Right?
So it was a full year, Dan, that your analysis was on? When you looked at the proposed abatement
Yes.
adjustment, okay, as one of the alternatives here versus no abatement, did you use both high readings or just the second high reading? Because the first high reading would, had a letter gone out, we would probably not be here at all.
Right.
Well, the letter would go out at best 2 weeks before the bill goes out.
Yeah.
So in
Well,
this case, he probably
what
would
I'm
have
at-
5.5 months of running water.
Yeah. Well, where I'm at is,
When I looked at this,
yeah,
I took the water usage, and then I charged the first rate, which is $232 for the first 15,000.
yeah.
And then for all the gallons after that, we only charge the second tier, which is $608 per 1,000
But
gallons.
again, we have a situation where they went from a usage of 61,000, right,
Yeah,
to 90.
yeah,
Okay, that was in January of 2021.
yeah.
And then we had a second usage where it was 330, and that was in July. My question is, were both of those higher usages involved in that calculation, or was it just the period from January to July?
Just the period from January to July.
Okay, in that case, I don't have an issue. The one thing I do want to say, and it is, this is, what I will say is, you get one, slice of the apple, you don't get a second one. So
Right.
basically, if you're not in a situation where your tenants can be, basically made liable for any high usage going forward, this board, and by that I mean current constituents, I for one would not entertain another comeback because,
Right.
you now know your tenant's not
Why
paying
would we
attention to
back
it.
at that time?
So I mean, I hope you don't either. I mean, but I'm just saying,
Right.
that this is the situation we sit in right now, because we are basically setting a precedent that we have to deal with going forward. And doing it for one kind of sticks us with the problem of doing it for all. And if we get enough of these, we're basically shifting costs to the rest of the water users in town in this circumstance. And, I believe that, those who use should pay, as the saying goes. That's why we have the tiers we have in our system.
Yeah, but I think the letter might come into it somewhat.
And that is why I'm saying that I am willing to,
Yeah.
the calculation is they did it, because the letter was not sent, and that's on us. And that would have prevented the second extremely high use. But in addition to that, our move to quarterly billing is also going to help to offset a lot of these issues, we hope. Because now nobody should be dealing with more than half a year at the outside as opposed to a full year.
Makes sense.
A quarter year.
So it'll be every 3 months.
The new one's going quarter.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So the
wait a minute.
so I'm going to chime in from a policy standpoint, not necessarily your case, that, if he got his
You
letter
can't chime in.
back in January, he wouldn't
You
have
can
got,
speak
he wouldn't got the
Come
July,
on.
he wouldn't have got the July notice because he would have corrected it already.
Bob, I think you overstepped your grounds having recused yourself. Please,
So just let's look at
You're
the,
talking from a policy issue.
We will talk the policy issue once the decision with regard
I'm not making
to
a
the
decision.
abatement is made, then you can speak to policy, not before.
Okay, fine.
so.
That'll
so
work
let's-
for you?
Yeah. So let's just look at the letter, see if we can come up with some reasonable solution to that letter.
Well,
Well, if he hasn't received it, if he doesn't have it, he never received one.
and
So if we did
Simple as
receive it,
that.
we wouldn't have this.
The person that he talked to would have been the person that sent the letter.
Right. And where I'm coming from right now is I think that the proposal that's here is one that I consider reasonable and willing to accept, which is basically you're abating as a nominal number about $1,100, to use a round number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're talking 1,100.
Basically, we abate the bill by $1,100, so the balance is what he pays.
Okay, and the letter is not going to help?
So the letter is what prompts me to agree to abate a portion of the bill.
Which
In fact, it was never sent.
and
Otherwise, I would be saying no. And then we're in, basically, if you're a yes and I'm a no, there is no action.
No, we gotta come to some resolve here. What about we look at the interest and penalties? Can we do something there? That seems, we've done this before.
That I have no issue with.
We did that.
The
for
interest and penalties, we could get that.
Right.
later.
Yeah, I don't have a
Remember,
problem
we
with
did
any
this.
interest and
We did
penalties.
this for the field study.
I have no problem with it, yes, sir.
Okay, all
So
right.
it's still-
So do we know what that is, the interest?
I don't know that.
Dan will run the calculations, and you'll have a
The treasurer-
base amount and plus the interest and penalties that are waived.
But
And
we
that
can
will be the
waive-
abatement of the
We can
proposal.
waive those.
Yes. Okay.
That's that.
Okay, and if for some reason, sir, the calculation doesn't come back in the ballpark of numbers we just got through talking about for an abatement, you get to come back to us and talk about it.
But you have paid part of the bill.
We paid $1,000.
already paid $1,000.
Everybody paid
So
$1,000.
it showed good faith.
Yeah, they paid their good faith amount, I
Okay.
learned that. Okay, so
So
I
we're still
move,
paying like an extra $4,000.
I'm sorry?
We're still paying an extra $4,000.
Understood. Well, the sewer issue is not being abated at all. Whatever went into the drains, it had to be treated at the waste treatment plant. We're not
Oh, so
abating
it's just
that.
the water?
It's just the water portion of the bill.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Do we have a more exact figure, Dan, at this point?
The only number I had was the $1,111.80 with the change of the rate per thousand.
We'll have to get,
I'm not sure what
rates
the
and
interest and
fees
fees
to
would
the
be.
treasurer's office.
So that,
Okay.
it was $1,011 or $1,100?
$1,011.80.
$1,100, okay. And 80 cents, you said?
Plus the interest and penalties.
Yeah, plus interest and
Plus
penalties.
interest.
Can you come up with that?
I'll contact the treasurer collector tomorrow.
Okay, so that could be $200-300.
Okay, so I move that we abate water bill in the portion of $1,011.80 and the interest and penalties accrued on the billing that was submitted was for July of 2021 to be determined in conjunction with the treasurer collector and to be provided to Mr. Sullivan and Mrs. Sullivan with, by the deputy superintendent of business. I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Do you want me to send you a letter, or do you want me to just respond to your email with the amount?
Would you send me a new bill, is that what they would want that to me?
They'll abate the next bill.
Okay.
About the next bill.
Okay.
So do you want me to email you with the total amount that we
Please.
abate? Okay.
Please.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But respond to your email, or do you
Yeah, that's
want me
fine.
to send a
My
letter?
email's on. It's on there, so.
Yeah, I'll send that to you
I
tomorrow.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bob, I guess a question for you. I was thinking that we legitimately have a discussion on the policy on the water supply capacity when we get into it, if you so desire. Or you can do it now, I don't care which.
No, let's go
Turning
to
it
the
back
next.
over to you.
Well, do we have partners here?
Yes, Environmental Partners is here. At the last meeting, I mentioned to you about the pavement management and the social media platform, and this is the presentation that you asked me about both of those.
I remember that, yeah.
So Conrad Ledger is here representing Environmental Partners, and he's going to put on the presentation. You might want to turn around and watch the screen.
I'm gonna sit over here so I can
So you
see.
focus with bifocals at that close range.
What's in the end? That's
Not to mention my neck gets it.
it. Yeah. Just move yourself back. Just turn a little bit, you can watch the screen.
Yeah.
He may have been. I didn't see the
Not used to doing these in person anymore.
looking for this.
It's kind of strange. All right, as Tom said, my name is Conrad Ledger from Environmental Partners. So I'm going to be presenting an update to the pavement management program today. So I've been fortunate enough to be working with the town since, I believe, 2015 at this point on the pavement management program. And periodically, every 3 to 5 years, it's industry standard to update the pavement management program, reassess the road network, and recalibrate all the numbers to be able to come up with good planning level cost estimates. So I'm going to run through today the update that we did earlier this year. The inspections were performed late last year, and we're going to kind of go through the results of that today. So first off, I know many of you know, but for folks that are watching, give a little overview of what pavement management is. So pavement management is the practice for planning pavement maintenance to maximize the value of your road network. So one of the things that a pavement management plan allows you to do is perform the right repairs at the right times on the right roadways. So this is a pavement management, pavement deterioration graphic on the left-hand side. So on the left-hand axis, this is a 0 to 100 rating, 0 being a roadway in terrible condition, 100 being a roadway in very good condition, and then time in years on the bottom. So you can see a brand new roadway starts out and it starts to deteriorate over time. And during those certain time periods and under certain conditions, you can perform maintenance to the roadways. So similar to doing oil changes on your car to prolong the life of the pavement. The treatments on the top of the curve, which I know the town does a lot of, are less expensive and less intrusive, and then the ones on the bottom of the curve are more expensive and more intrusive. So obviously keeping good roads in good condition while being able to get to those roadways that are in poor condition as well.
I have a question before you proceed.
Sure.
That graphic is generic.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have, or do you folks have the statistical graphics that basically break this down, like the difference between a neighborhood road, a feeder road, and main roads?
So you're asking about different deterioration curves for each type of roadway?
Because I'm looking at the fact that I have been in my neighborhood for over 20 years.
Yep.
And the road was actually paved over and accepted in circa 84. And the bottom line being that, it hasn't deteriorated other than some areas that need crack sealing because of the fact it's a hill. Pavement shifts with gravity just like everything else does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Versus if you're riding down Webster Street, you're getting a lot more potholes and other damage, which is a feeder road. And then, of course, Ocean, Main, and the rest of the streets that are mains, they take a beating because they get more heavy truck traffic more frequently and all the rest of the stuff.
For sure.
I mean, to me, is that embedded in your pavement management plan?
So we catch that difference in deterioration when we re-inspect the road network. So, and we also have all of the roadways coded by roadway classification as well. So
generically, you don't have the statistics for like all the neighborhood roads you've surveyed, because I know Environmental Partners does a fair amount of this versus feeder roads versus main roads. You don't have that embedded like across many communities.
If you're asking if we have like specific curves for each type of road?
Have basically general statistical curves that show that type of deterioration for, in general for neighborhood roads regardless of where they happen to be in Massachusetts.
Yep.
Versus the rest of the road.
We have a pretty good idea, but we don't have...
We haven't generated something like that. Okay.
Correct.
That's the question. Okay, so.
All right, so this is an example of why pavement preservation can be successful if it's done properly. So this is an example, it's actually down in Connecticut, so it's local, of a roadway in the town Rhine goes right down the middle of this roadway. So community on the right-hand side, well, these communities got together in 2004, they did a mill and overlay project. The community on the left-hand side did not feel that pavement preservation or preserving roadways and doing maintenance on them was a good idea. The one on the right-hand side did a crack sealing and microsurfacing project. And you can kind of see the results. I believe this was in 2017 when we had these pictures captured. So you can see that the roadway on the left-hand side is obviously in a lot worse condition, so the users are going to be able to see a significant difference. And actually, to do the maintenance on these two roadways at the time of this photograph, you're going to spend more money on the roadway on the left-hand side than on the right-hand side, because even though you hit that roadway on the right-hand side a couple times, those roadway repairs were less expensive and less intrusive. So this is an example of why pavement preservation can be successful when done properly. So in terms of the project that we did here in town and what we've been doing periodically, it's really a three-step process. So you do look at the network inventory and do your data collection, the analysis and reporting, and then capital planning and action planning. So I'll get through those here in a second. So just to kind of look at the overall road network, so the town has about 133 miles of roadway, 32.89 of those in the collector category, and then most of the roadways here in town are in the local categories. We do classify like dead ends and cul-de-sacs separately, so it's about 20.72 miles of roadways that are in that type. So in terms of the assessments, as you might know, pavement assessments have been changing the technology to be able to do them over the past, especially over the past 5 years. So we used a methodology using machine learning technology for this. So it's actually done using what everybody has in their pocket right now, it's cell phone. So it's basically the cell phone application, strap it to your dashboard, drive down the roadway. The computer collects the information, then an artificial intelligence is used to be able to give you those roadway ratings. The automated process over time, or when it first came out, was very expensive. But this allows you to do it very cost effectively, and it produces some nice things for you. So it provides you photographs every 10 feet along the road network, which is very valuable for the town moving forward. And also provides a non-biased, extremely cost-effective solution to redo your pavement inspections when they're necessary. So this gets into in the middle here is that 0 to 100 rating, and the whole goal of pavement management in terms of the data collection portion of it is to put each segment of roadway into a repair or a maintenance category. So you can see here on the right-hand side, you have no maintenance required, so those are roadways that are brand new or in very, very good condition. Routine maintenance, preventative maintenance, minor rehabilitation, and major rehabilitation. And on the left-hand side, you can see all the different treatments, and there's a lot of different treatments that fall within each category. And what we're able to do here is we're able to do planning level cost estimating for what needs to be done to the roadway at the time of the inspection. So you can see here, routine maintenance, for instance, is about $1 per square yard, depending on which treatment you use. Preventative maintenance, $8 per square yard. Minor rehabilitation, $18 per square yard. And major rehabilitation, which is $45 per square yard. So a couple things I want to note here. These are averages for each of the different categories. So depending on which treatment you actually select, it could be a little bit lower or a little bit higher, but it gives us a general idea if you're using all the different treatments out there, what it would cost. And then also this does not include any drainage repairs or any sidewalk repairs that go along with those roadways. So kind of gives you just a generally speaking, how much it is to do each of the roadways.
Another question I have. When you're looking at those repairs, does that include restoration of like Cape Cod berming and that sort of thing, or is that separate from it?
So what we do is we basically, in order to calibrate these numbers, we take a general road that gets repaired in the town, and we, do a mile of road and back calculate that. So generally speaking, some roads it'll cover it and some roads it won't. It depends on, exactly what's being done on that roadway. Yep.
So I have a question on major rehabilitation, full
Correct.
depth reclamation.
Yep.
Define full depth.
Full depth is going down into the pavement base, grind. So there's two different types of major rehabilitation that's commonly used. One is full depth reclamation, and one is reconstruction, pulling everything out and putting it back in place. That's not as common. And Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember ever doing a full rebuild of a roadway since I've been here. Am I correct?
No, since you've been here, we haven't even done a full depth reclamation.
Correct.
So, and there is some material removed when you do a full depth.
Yep.
Reestablishing the crown and the gutters, so the reveal of the granite curb, or if you're going to put berm back in.
Yeah. So in terms of a full depth,
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, you got a square yard.
Yeah.
You got 3 by 3, but I was wondering how deep. So when you replace it back, what is your binder on a full depth? What is your wearing surface on a full depth?
So it depends on which type of roadway you're doing. If you're doing it on one of the collector roadways, you might put a little bit more on top, but local roadway, it could be 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and 2 inches. Those will be decided on a project by project basis. So in terms of the overall assessments themselves and what came out of it, so we went out, we rated all the roadways, broke them up into segments, and the overall rating in the town when we did the assessments last year was about an 80.11. And the focus here isn't necessarily on that number, but it's on the number moving forward. So what this is our benchmark moving forward to be able to kind of see if the roadways are deteriorating over time or if they're becoming if they're improving. And then on the bottom here is the breakdown of how many miles fall into each category. So you can see here, major rehabilitation is actually a pretty minimal amount, so about 1.1 miles. Minor rehab, about 18.1 miles. The majority of the roadways are actually falling into the preventative, routine, and no maintenance required categories. And what this allows us to do as well, based on the square yardage of pavement that falls into each of these categories, we can come out with preliminary cost estimates to be able to do that work. So you can see about $1 million to do the major rehabilitation, $5.2 million to be able to do the minor rehab, 5.2 to do the preventative maintenance. So again, these are benchmarks moving forward and helps us to be able to do planning for how much money needs to be used on these roadways. So just a little bit about the program that is in place now here as well. So this is an ArcGIS online-based dashboard that we created for the town as part of the deliverable. And there's a lot of different components to this. So you can see every roadway, you can see the length, the width of each of the roadways and the segments. On the left-hand side here, there's all these reports that go along with the system as well. And then on the right-hand side, you can see those photographs that we talked about that we collected as well. So the entire road network, all 133 miles of roadway, have photographs every 10 feet that you can access as part of this. So it's very, very helpful from a year-by-year basis to be able to see what happened to that roadway. If it deteriorated really poorly over a winter time, you can actually go back and you have an archive of what it looked like when the inspections were done. So it gives you kind of a really good baseline moving forward. It's also helpful on a lot of other different things too. So like, you know, for instance, if there was a sign that all of a sudden went missing or something like that, you actually have an archive of when that sign was there or if it was there when we did the inspections in 2021. So the next step, and this is where we're kind of at right now with the program and recalibrating the system, is the capital planning and action planning portion of it. So you can see the capital planning typically involves, you know, looking at your budget and your existing conditions, but in pavement management it gives you a couple other tools as well to be able to help out and create realistic capital plans. So you have a cost benefit value, which is industry standard. You take a look at all your sidewalks, your ADA compliance along the projects that are selected. Take a look at sewer, gas, and water upgrades that need to go on with it as well. And then also looking at community needs. So we know that there are priority destinations sometimes in towns that take priority in terms of helping with, you know, selecting one roadway or another. You know, it could be the road that accesses a school, or it could be a major bus route. And we want to take that into account as we're creating the capital plan. So this is kind of the process of where we're at right now with developing this. So in terms of looking, you know, at the overall network, this is just a little gauge that we like to look at. So how much is the town spending on a yearly basis? What is the current backlog? And then if we were to redo it, or rebuild every single roadway in town, how much would it cost? So this gives you kind of an overall estimated network value. So you can see the town is spending their Chapter 90 allotment, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but it's about $750,000 per year right now. Current backlog is about $11.834 million, and then the overall estimated network value as well is $81 million. So the reason I like to look at this is because you can see in terms of the current backlog, if no deterioration was to happen on the roadways for the next 10 years, at that current funding level, you wouldn't be able to get to all the maintenance that's required today. So it just gives you a little bit of a gauge and something to think about as we're getting into capital planning. So in terms of prioritization, I talked about some of those things that pavement management allows you to do. The cost benefit value, which is very, very helpful when prioritizing strictly roadway repairs. Takes into account average daily traffic by the roadway functional classification, as you spoke about, the roadway rating itself, the cost of the repair, and the life expectancy of that repair. So how much more life am I going to get out of that roadway if I do the maintenance on it today? Again, we're looking at underground utility coordination, constructability. So we don't want a contractor to do a segment of a roadway on one side of town and then go all the way to the other side just because the CBV is telling us to go there. Design process and consideration. So if there's some sort of safety enhancements or design that needs to take place in this is the time that we're looking at those and making sure that we have everything lined up and in place for the years that the roadway is selected for. Treatment options. So I know in working with Tom and Sean when he was here, and Tom even before that, we're always looking at new available technologies that are out there to be able to preserve the roadways and rebuild the roadways to make them last as long as possible. And then lastly, as I spoke about, you know, looking at those community needs, looking at the locations and the use of those roadways and where they lead to. So this is one scenario that we ran for the town and how, based on funding levels. So to get to your question, sir, about the traffic that's on the roadways, in this scenario tool that we actually have the ability to calibrate that in the scenario itself. So be able to put how many miles of roadway fall into the local, sorry, watch me crazy. How many miles of roadway fall into the local category versus the collector category, and then be able to project out how long those roadways will last. And it's really useful in this tool. And again, this is very generic, looking at the fact that, you know, based on these funding scenarios that we have there, that you're expected to spend a certain percentage of that budget on certain categories. So, you know, I think in this scenario particularly, we looked at like 5% of your overall budget would be used on routine maintenance, 20% of it would be used on preventative maintenance. And then for you folks, because, you know, the most of your value in terms of the roads that need to be done are in minor rehab. We didn't put anything in major rehab. And then this is the projection that it comes out to. So you can see your existing funding level, $0.75 million, will continue to deteriorate over time. To be able to kind of break even, it's about $1.75 million, and then to, you know, substantially improve the roadway network, which you folks are in a pretty good category, but you'll see over time, obviously those roadways that have had the investment done on them, they're going to start to deteriorate at the same time, and they're all going to kind of fall into those categories together. So, you know, just looking at this scenario, 2.25, 2.75 million would make significant improvements on the road network. And then lastly, before I kind of take any more questions, you know, this is kind of the yearly cycle of a pavement management program. So, you know, pavement management is not meant to be just a book or report that you slap on a desk and you kind of look at it every once in a while. You're really meant to kind of have this yearly cycle that you go through, where you produce baseline data, and like, for instance, this year, that will simply just be updating the roads that get paved this year, and you can kind of reset that baseline. Go through your capital planning, asset coordination, so that's when you do all the coordination with the utilities, make sure you're not ripping up a roadway, and you know, that was just paved. You want to make sure that the utilities underneath it are in good shape. Get your bid documents and get your bids in place. I know Tom and Marshfield use the consortium bid, I believe, for the paving. Your yearly construction, and then update the database again. So this is really meant to be a yearly cycle that you go through for pavement management, and I know we've been doing it for a long time and helping the town out with that. With that, I'll kind of open it up for questions.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something? It's okay if I say
You
something?
want to say something? Say something.
All right, thank you.
Just identify yourself.
Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. I drive around town a lot. My street was probably paved in the 80s, and it's beautiful, even though I'm in an area with a high water table. But recently, like an 1.5 to 2-inch crack is opened right in front of my house, goes right across the pavement. Other than that, it seems to me the biggest problem in town is with catch basins and manholes. So I wonder how, when you rate the condition of the road, is it based on cracks per 100 feet? Or do you also take into consideration the condition of manhole rims?
Yeah, so the AI captures the cracking, like around the manholes. It captures potholes. It captures, you know, a lot of different things. So if around the manhole is like badly cracked, it definitely takes that into account in the overall analysis.
It's a real eye-opening, nice present, real eye-opening.
Thank you.
It shows we're just not spending the money we should be on roads. That's pretty obvious.
Thank you, Joe. Can you go back to 2 slides?
Yep.
Yeah, this does.
It's always the one that everybody wants to go to.
Well, Tom,
Yes, sir.
in our budget, what are we getting from the town, and what are we getting from the state on an annual basis?
This year, we get the 747,000 and change. The governor has submitted a supplemental budget to increase the Chapter 90 by $100 million, which would give us another half of what we get. He's also submitted a $100 million for, I think it's 100 for the winter road program. So that would also give us, I think if they use the same formula, it would also give us somewhere in the 350 range. But this year we get no money from the town. Last year we got 220. This year we're getting nothing. Private road money has been pushed off until the fall special town meeting, and normally we can use, if we don't have that private road, repairs of private roads, we can use our funding from the road money. But with this year, we don't have that luxury.
In the past, we have got from the town.
It's ranged. When I first got here, we were getting 300,000, then it went to 100, then we didn't get anything, then it went to 100, then it went to 200. It goes by whatever they have available, free cash.
So the town has a real priority of helping out the roads.
Well, yeah, but, you know, one of the things a few years back, I was on a committee that looked into increasing the Chapter 90 money, and one of the things that the state was going to require is that there was a match from the community. And that match would determine how much of that additional $100 million, you know, how it would be divvied up.
And has that gone anywhere?
No.
No. David, go ahead.
My follow-up is, I know we have approached our senator and state representative, but there has been no move afoot to change the formula on how much money per mile roadway in the Chapter 90 calculation.
There hasn't been any change.
I mean, that has been stagnant for decades.
Oh,
It's been
yeah.
at least 10 years.
At least
At least 10 years.
The number I was using when I sat in his chair is the same number he's
I'm
using,
using.
it gets from the state now.
Yep.
That's over a decade.
Yeah,
I got a comment.
sure.
I understand the town has, or did have, probably has, 5 million in free cash. So I don't understand why they're not funding anything for the roads.
It's
I mean,
not
they have
just that
five-
they're not funding. Now, you'll get more information as we get into the meeting about other funding that has been cut.
Well, they don't, they're cut, they just don't fund it. And-
Well, they're cutting too, so
Yeah, no,
I'll be updating you on
Yeah,
that.
so, you know, it's just tough to work with this type of management. It's almost impossible to keep the infrastructure somewhat drivable. I mean, the roads are deteriorating like you won't believe, and there's potholes everywhere. Not our fault.
And
I blame it
the
on the
projections you hear from
administration there, the selectmen and the town administrator.
the words you hear when it comes to global warming is that the heavier rains, the greater variation in temperatures during winter season and the like, are just going to promote more deterioration of the roadway. And frost does heave.
Frost, freeze thaw, or is killing us.
Yeah, but we were getting no help from the financial team. No. So it
Well,
doesn't
thank
fall
you.
on the DPW. That's true.
Oh, thank you. How are other communities, my last question, before we close out. How does Marshfield work as far as funding the roads from a town perspective versus a state perspective?
So every community does their own thing in terms of that standpoint. Some of the best communities that I've worked with in the past match it. I'm not saying that that's for everybody. You folks do. I will say that Marshfield does have a little bit of a benefit that you don't have nearly as many sidewalks along your roads as a lot of other communities in Massachusetts do, which obviously adds substantial cost when you're going to repair roadways. So that is one of the primary reasons I know in working with Tom and Sean when he was here about why you're able to get so much paving done in terms of keeping those roads that are well-traveled in fairly good condition. But, you know, the model shows what it is, and, you know, we can definitely run other models as well to kind of look at, you know, what it would look like if this funding level was sustained versus this one. And we can also tweak the parameters of the model as well. But this is kind of our standard model that we show and that we go to in most of the towns that we work with.
So, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Marshfield doesn't have a lot of sidewalks. It's not as walkable as other communities.
Yep.
And there's a lot of areas where we should be emphasizing the walkable areas where we haven't. And, you know, safe routes is a big push to make it a community more walkable.
Yep.
You know, we have beaches and we have no sidewalks and no areas where people could get away from cars.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's a trails committee, but that's not this. But really, when you get out, when I first got on this board 20 plus years ago, we're talking about Webster Street, and we're talking about the link that goes from downtown up Webster Street all the way around and come back down. There isn't that connectivity.
Right.
You know, and there's walkable areas that need to be done to the beaches, and where they're not. Williamsville Road, Standish Road, there's other ones that, you know, people have to walk on the street to get there.
Yep.
So it's an issue, and we need to really, moving forward, we need to dust off the sidewalk master plan that we had put together years ago.
Yep.
And you know, really pick away at it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a tough balance too, because, you know, if you're not getting enough money to maintain your roads, it's tough to justify that you're spending more on sidewalks now. So there is always that balance, but there's a safety component to it too. And, you know, every community's got to make that decision in terms of where they.
Every road doesn't need a sidewalk.
No, correct. Yep.
But destination points do need sidewalk.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's what the sidewalk plan was. It was based on this destinations.
Sure.
Well, I have a comment here.
Yep.
For what the town is spending, because they're not spending it on the roads. We know that. But they're over at the town pier. I was there Saturday. They're gonna try and spend through CPC. I believe it was $157,000, but it's somewhere in the vicinity of $135,000 the town's going to spend for a ridiculous walkway around that mud pit to overlook the sewer treatment plant. That's exactly what it does. And then they want to spend another $200,000 to $300,000 to put a parking lot in where the dredge spoils exist. That's totally unnecessary. It's not something that we need. The town pier parking lot is never full. But this is the monies that they're spending in lieu of trying to keep our infrastructure on our roads up to par. So there's something wrong with this financial team at the town hall. We've got the tree selectmen plus the financial team. There's something wrong there. The way they're spending the money. They seem to want to bankrupt the DPW and make us look bad. So, you know, something's wrong. There's an election coming up. Maybe that will change things. Who knows? But that's the money they're spending on a useless trailway, doesn't have ADA compliant, and then a parking lot that's totally unnecessary.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Conrad. You gonna do the social media one? or-
So I have no presentation on the social media, so I just want to kind of talk about the social media.
Sure.
So, you know, this was something that I gave a presentation at Plymouth County Highway, and Tom was there. And so after the presentation that I gave, we started talking about, you know, the needs of getting out there and using social media for public outreach from Public Works. And the initial project that I worked on was with the City of Gloucester. And, you know, I was meeting with the director up there, and you know, we were talking about all different projects, and, you know, he said, hey, you know, I have one more thing. And, you know, my biggest issue, and this was in the middle of COVID, when, you know, all the DPW staff was expected to come in every day, and he said, you know, my real problem is I don't think people in the community understand what Public Works does. And he said, you know, we would love to get it out there more. We don't really know where to start. Is this something that you can help us out with? And, you know, in doing pavement management, I do a lot of public outreach and presentations like this, and, you know, town meetings, whatever it may be. And we have some talented staff in our marketing department that do this all the time for us at EP. And, you know, so we put together a program for him where we branded his Public Works department. And we put together, you know, templates and things like that for consistent public outreach with with social media platforms. And, you know, Tom saw that, and he thought it would be a good idea in terms of kind of doing something similar here in Marshfield. And, you know, so I provided a scope and fee to do something similar to that we did in Gloucester. And it was really nice. In the end, we put together some really nice, easy templates. So when the DPW staff that's responsible for the social media outreach needs to put out, there's a snowstorm coming, or there's flooding in a certain area. Everything is branded the same way. So if you're on social media and you follow it here in town, you know that if you see a post that looks like something, after a while, you get to know that that's what that post means. I better look at it. And if anybody in this room uses social media, you kind of just scroll through it and something catches your eye and you stop. So the idea here is that we're going to do something similar here in Marshfield. We're going to brand the social media. We're going to look at how you're using social media now and how you've used it in the past, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And then after that, we're actually going to support the town for, I believe we put in there 3 months, correct? And we can always extend that if the staff needs to have that extension. But the idea here is that we're actually going to work with the staff and train the staff that's responsible for the different social media platforms to post during certain events, to how to post, what to post, where to post, so that it becomes kind of part of their daily routine, how often to post. So, and it's really a skill. Like, me personally, I use my social media a lot, and I use it for business and I use it for my personal side. And it really takes, for somebody who's not naturally kind of doing that on a daily basis, it takes some getting used to and some training almost. So that's the program we put together, Tom.